Hey guys, Mr. Oliveri here, and I'm going to be doing the reading for today. Alright? So you could pause, you could rewind, do whatever you got to do. Listen to it twice. Here we go. It was a summertime Saturday morning, and I was up before dawn to go fishing. I tiptoed out of the house so I wouldn't disturb anyone, but when I reached my car, someone was already up and waiting for me. My 17-year-old daughter, Holly. She was dressed in jeans, a blue denim shirt, and a khaki fishing vest, and she was checking out her tackle box. I knew that she had something important on her mind. Holly first became my fishing buddy when she was about 6 years old. For years, I couldn't go fishing without taking her along, but when she reached her teens, she began to develop other interests. After a while, the only time she'd go with me was when she needed to have a private talk, and the most private place we had was our little boat on a remote lake at dawn. We reached the lake near West Des Moines, Iowa, before the sun was up, unloaded our boat, and slid it into the water. Holly took her usual place in the bow when I pushed off. I switched on the electric motor and it propelled us quietly across the calm water. The night mist was just beginning to lift, slowly unveiling the pines and birches that lined the shore. A beaver, irritated by our intrusion, slapped the water with his strong, broad tail to show his displeasure. The usual starting place, Holly asked. The usual. I steered the boat to a quiet inlet dotted with tree stumps and came to a stop. Bass country. The usual bet, Holly asked. She smiled, but her dark brown eyes were serious, almost sad. The usual, I said. That was $1 for the first fish and $1 for the largest. Silently, with studied care, she attached a plug to her line. Then, with a delicate but sure hand, she cast the plug alongside one of the stumps and began a slow retrieve, twitching the plug along to put it in lifelike motion. I picked out two stumps set fairly close together and cast an imitation minnow between them. We fished around the stumps for several minutes without getting a bite, when I couldn't help but wonder what was on Holly's mind. But I knew she would talk to me when she was ready. It would only hurt to try and hurry her. At times, being a parent demands as much patience as fishing. Let's try drifting the bottom, my daughter said. I have a feeling they're swimming very deep this morning. I steered the boat out into open water, and we rigged our lures to run deep. I switched off the motor and let the boat drift very slowly, our lines trailing behind us. Now the sun was rising, and the lake and woods were bathed in the pure, clean light of dawn. Holly put on an old, battered fishing hat to shade her eyes. I looked around. There were no other boats on the lake. It was as though we were the only human beings on Earth. Dad? I knew from her tone that the moment had come. Yes? You know my plans for college? To go to junior college in town this fall, then transfer after 2 years to the state university? They're good plans, I said. Among other benefits, we'll be able to do this for another 2 years. She looked away, and I looked at the long, brown hair that curled out from under that old fishing hat. She looked so little, so fragile. 2 short years, and she would be gone. Dad, would you be mad if I changed my plans? My throat seemed to close. My words had to be forced out. Don't tell me you don't want to go to college. I do, Dad. It's just, well, I don't want you to think I'm unhappy at home or anything, but I want to go away to the university this fall. Well, I said, grasping at straws, I suppose we'd still have our summers to do a little fishing. She turned to look at me. I wouldn't be home in the summer. I'd like to stay in school all year long and finish in 3 years. That way, I'll have my education and be ready for a job a year earlier. And that was it. All of a sudden, goodbye forever to my big little girl. My feelings must have shown in my face because she gave me an out. It's up to you, Dad. I know it will cost more, and I'll be away most of the time. If you don't want me to go, I'll stay here. Before I could answer, the fishing rod jerked almost out of my hands as the tip plunged into the water. I could tell by the strength of the pull that I had a big one hooked. Holly forgot everything in the excitement of pulling in the big fish. She grabbed the net and dipped it into the water so she could get it under him when he neared the boat. Slowly, with the line taut almost to the breaking point, I worked the fish in. Holly netted him and used both hands to hoist him into the boat. What we had was the most beautiful bass I'd ever tangled with. Oh, Dad, Holly said. This one you have to take home and have mounted for your study wall. It's the biggest bass I've ever seen. Her words sank in, and I took a long, hard look at that bass, considering. Finally, I unhooked him carefully, lifted him, and, as Holly stared in disbelief, put him gently back in the lake. In an instant, he was gone. Honey, I said, I've always dreamed of having a fish like that mounted on my wall where I could look at him whenever I wanted to. But a fish on a wall is a lifeless thing, no matter how much you prize it. That fish was so full of life and fought so hard for his freedom that I had to let him go back where he belonged, to live life his own. To live life on his own. Our lines went back into the water again, and we resumed our drifting and fishing. Holly's back was toward me. Thanks, Dad, she said, without turning around. I knew you'd understand. But she didn't know, and she couldn't know, and she won't know until someday in the future, when her own child, with or without a word of warning, turns a back on home and walks out into the grown-up world forever.